Hi, good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm going to turn on the video as well so you can see me, hopefully. That's not working. So anyway, let me know if you can hear me okay. My name's Carla Naden and I'm the marketing manager here at Purdicom. Thanks for joining us for the introduction to RUCKUS Networks webinar. So today I'm going to be joined with Alex Smith, who is our major account manager and looks after a large proportion of our RUCKUS business. So you're in very good hands today. Just a couple of bits before we kick off. We will be recording the webinar. So if there's any bits you miss or if you need to recap at the end, I will be sending that out with the follow-ups. We will have the Q&A panel open and I'll be here manning the chat as we go. So if there's any questions, do feel free to kind of just type them in as we go. We'll do our best to answer them as we go along and or at the end. The webinar itself is going to be probably around 45 minutes to an hour with the Q&A. And as you can see, you've got the agenda up in front of us now. So I'm hoping this is all working and you can see everything. But yeah, just a little bit about what we're going to run through. So an introduction to Purdicom. We're going to look at how we can serve your business. That includes a little bit of information around some of the services that we can offer and our value add. We're going to talk obviously about CommScope and our relationship. And then we're going to be looking at the RUCKUS portfolio in a little bit more detail. Some of the partner benefits that come along with becoming a CommScope RUCKUS partner. And then we'll run through Q&A. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Alex and we'll take a look at what we've got today. Thanks, Alex.
Cheers, Carla. Thank you for that. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So yeah, I'm just going to kick straight off in to the presentation. So, who are Purdicom? What do we do? So Purdicom, we're a next generation wireless networking and security distributor. We're based out in Oxfordshire. And, look, we try to provide end-to-end solutions for our customers. So, switching, wireless, onboarding, and then obviously protecting your networks and your customers and the devices as well. We're kind of, I would say, that good sized distributor. Actually, we're not too big, we're not too small. We've got circa 60 full-time employees and that number is growing every year. When I say we're kind of that ideal size of a distributor, what I mean by that is we're big enough to have some really good processes and some sort of leading CRM systems and things like that, but we're still small enough to be agile and nimble enough to kind of be flexible and adaptable to your requirements and support you in all the ways that we need you to. We are a multi-award winning distributor. So, we've won various awards with various of our vendors that we distribute, something that we are quite proud of. And, as I said, we do have some really good processes and we're quite proud to say that we are ISO 9001 certified and accredited as well. In terms of, us as a distributor, I think it's very, very important for us to say, we are a tier 2 distributor. And what I mean by that is we will never, ever sell direct to end customers. We will engage with them, if you want us to, and with your permission, whether that be on a pre or post sale support. But, we will never, ever sell or discuss pricing with any of your customers ever. In fact, in some of our distribution agreements, it is prohibited for us to sell to end users. So number one, we'd lose our distribution if we were to do that. And number two, it's just not very good business if we started selling to your customers. In terms of verticals, as you can see there, we pretty much sell to all verticals and industries. MDU in hospitality is quite a big umbrella. So just to elaborate on that slightly, MDU in hospitality would pretty much class as anything with a bed. So obviously hotels, but that can be care homes, student accommodation, even prisons, things like that. Under hospitality, MDU and retail would probably also class like large public venues, so football stadiums, rugby stadiums, stadia in general really, and large public venues, I don't know, like the Excel Stadium in London, for example, stuff like that. We'll then move on to our technology. So, we've kind of covered this briefly at the beginning there, but Wi-Fi and onboarding, I think obviously that's the key point that we'll be talking about today, specifically RUCKUS. We also do have a lot of point-to-point and multi-point products, and a lot of our business is built around that actually. So that can be connectivity to business parks. It can be connecting point A to point B, rural broadband deployment, CCTV backhaul, shore to offshore connectivity, all that kind of stuff. But if you need to get connectivity or internet from point A to point B, or even point C, D, and E as well, we do have products in our portfolio to do that. We're not going to talk about those today, obviously, but just want to give you an overview of what we do. Cabling infrastructure. Some of you may be aware, you may not be aware, that RUCKUS has now been acquired by a company called CommScope. CommScope are a huge organization. I want to say $13 billion as a turnover, absolutely massive company, and their core business historically has been that cabling and infrastructure side, so structured cabling, that kind of thing. We're not going to talk about that today, but if you do have any cabling requirements, please let us know. Obviously, if you do become a RUCKUS partner, then that side of the portfolio is available to you as well. UPS or backup power supplies. Once again, you've got all your server infrastructure, your switching, all that kind of stuff in place. But what happens if you lose power to the building? We do have solutions to keep your network up and running during that time. Equally as well, some places you may be aware have sort of are more prone to power surges and things like that than others. If so, we can turn that what we call dirty power into clean power to stop those surges and make sure that that doesn't, number one, damage any equipment, and number two, can sometimes cause things to reboot and stuff like that. So once again, that's very good for those kind of things. Voice, yeah, absolutely, we do Wi-Fi, we do SIP, SIP decks as well. So if you've got any voice requirements, whether that be for hospitality, logistics, manufacturing, those kind of things, we do have a product available for you to on that side of things as well. Analytics and control, lots of products within that. Obviously, some of that is built into the RUCKUS portfolio as well. But yeah, I mean, we've got lots. It can depend on what you want, really. So retail, as an example, you might want to know who the user is connecting to your network so you can remarket out to them. For example, I know that it's Alex Smith. He's signed in with Facebook, and he's 33 years of age, lives in Basingstoke, and you can then market that out accordingly to me. On the flip side of that, it can be more around the back end analytics. So how's your network performing? What's going on? Are there any issues? Proactive alerts, that kind of thing. Switching, obviously, we will talk about that today, as that is built into the RUCKUS portfolio. And we do a whole range, from edge to aggregation to core. We will cover that, so I'm going to skim over that for the time being. And then security, once again, we've got a couple of products that kind of fit that category. But some of it also, some of the security elements are built into RUCKUS. But depending on what you want, we do have firewalls on our portfolio and bandwidth management, that kind of thing. Equally worth noting, some of you may be aware that we distribute WatchGuard. WatchGuard have just acquired a company called Panda, and that's all around antivirus. So we can also protect the end device and the user as well. I'm just going to leave this slide open just for a second, but these are basically the products that we distribute. And like I said, this is our range of backup power supplies, point-to-point, point-to-multipoint, our security, our onboarding, our bandwidth management, our voice, etc., etc. So I'm just going to leave that there for a second. But if you want to talk about any of those products, please give us a call, email us. More than happy to talk about those in greater detail. So those are our products. What do we do? How do we add value to you? And what are our services, etc.? So training and technical support. Hopefully this is a no-brainer, but I think it is lacking out there in terms from some distributors. Thankfully, we are not one of those. So yeah, absolutely. In terms of technical support, every product that we sell, our technical team are fully versed in. So if you've got any problems, please give them a call, drop them an email. Absolutely, we're here to help, we're here to support, and that is a free service. It's part of the value add that we provide to you as a partner. That support can also be pre-sales as well. So all of the products that we sell, we typically use in-house. So if you want demos to yourself or to your customer, we've got all the management platforms, we've got all of the kit here. We can jump on a webinar, we can come to site with you, we can do whatever, we can demo and show that equipment to your customers. One thing that is worth pointing out, actually, and something that we are quite proud of, is we are the only certified training partner for RUCKUS in the UK. There is online training available for RUCKUS, but if you would like any on-hands training, and you want that to be certified for your accreditation purposes, etc., then we are the only people in the country that can, or the UK actually, that can do that. Logistics, I think this is kind of quite an obvious one for distribution, but seems to be lacking most of the time. So stock, that is kind of the number one thing that you would expect from a distributor. You know, we are set on approximately about £7 million worth of stock at the moment. The majority of that will probably be in RUCKUS. So, you know, we always have equipment available for you. If it's not in stock for one reason or another, we typically have weekly deliveries coming in. So if it's not in stock, it should be fairly shortly. Finance, you know, as I said, we are an agile company. We are here to help you and be as useful to you as we possibly can. Equally, we're not a bank, but you know, we do appreciate for some newer partners or for some companies that are just getting started, credit can be an issue. So if we can't get credit insured by our insurers, we will try and help in every way that we can. It could be that you've got an order file that they call it £10,000. We can't get the credit limit insured. It might be something that we try and work with you as a partnership. And what I mean by that is maybe we say that if you can chuck us 5,000 up front, we give you the other 5,000 on credit, and hopefully we can build up those credit lines over time. Equally, you know, if you do want to look at finance or leasing or anything like that, RUCKUS do have a financial services offering, which is very, very popular as well. So once again, if that's of interest, please let us know. I would love to talk to you about that. Hopefully a fairly obvious one, but you will get a dedicated account manager, whether that be myself or one of my colleagues. And probably worth pointing out actually that you may have a couple of account managers. So within Purdicom, we have two sales divisions. So we have what we call our Wi-Fi team or wireless team. That's the team that I sit on, and as the name would suggest, you know, that is our Wi-Fi products, so RUCKUS and some of the complementary products around that, such as the security and whatnot. And then we have our connectivity team, and the connectivity team are there for the point-to-point, multi-point products. And the reason why we do that is we don't want to be jack of all trades, master of none. Hopefully when you put in a call to us and you want to talk about any of our products, you know, if I can't help, for example, there'd be a colleague sat next to me that I can pop you through, and they'd be able to have a meaningful and intelligent conversation around that product. Marketing, obviously you've met the lovely Carla already. Her and her team, they do all of our marketing internally for us. And actually it's a service that they will help offer out to you as a partner as well. So, you know, if you want help getting things branded, we're more than happy to help that. If you want your website updated, more than happy to help with that. Carla and the team also very kind. If you want to do sort of some case studies, you've got something quite unique and something that you want to shout about, we will offer a written case study service free of charge as well. A big thing of what we do, and very, very popular with a lot of our partners, are the marketing development funds, or MDF for short. And what this means is, you know, if you're running a RUCKUS campaign and you want to talk about RUCKUS and there's a cost associated to it, we can help fund up to 50% of those costs. And that could be anything. That can be pens, pads, pencils, that kind of stuff. It could be that you want to hire a third-party telemarketing company and there's a cost associated to that. We can potentially help fund up to 50% of those costs. Equally, it could be that you're doing a road show or you're exhibiting at maybe like a vet education show or an IP expo, and you need some financial assistance with the stands and the collateral and everything that goes around that. Once again, the MDF funds are available for use for those sorts of things. Equally, if you are doing road shows, you know, look, feel free to contact myself or your account manager. We're more than happy, if we've got the availability, we're more than happy to even jump on the stand with you for a couple of days and try and help with those sales and those queries that come through. On top of all of that, we do have a professional services division. So we can pretty much help with everything from the beginning in terms of design all the way through to installation and training at the end or before, depending on what you want to do. But site planning is the top left one there. You know, so typically that would be like heat maps or desktop designs, virtual surveys, whatever you prefer to call them. You know, you send us a floor plan, you tell us the wall types, where you need coverage, where you don't, that kind of thing. We've put together a design that then says, look, we think you need 10 APs or 100 APs based on this design, and here's a quote alongside it. Very good for kind of first engagement for yourselves and for your customers, just to get a budgetary figure together, and equally to kind of back it up with, you know, we think the solution is going to cost £10,000, and here's why, because you need access points here, and there. On the back of that, we can also do physical surveys just to verify those results. Heat maps are fairly accurate, but they're by no means 100% accurate. You know, for example, it might be that you tell us that the walls are plasterboard. We get to site and actually they're 10-foot thick brick wall, for example. Obviously, our heat map at that point is going to be slightly skewed. Whereas a physical design will obviously eliminate anything like that, because we can measure the readings through the walls and get an actual accurate reading. We can also do pre-staging. So if you want us to configure the equipment before it gets to site, absolutely we can do that. And therefore, all you need to do is plug it in once it gets to site. If you prefer us to actually come to site, and commission it on site, absolutely we can do that as well. Line of sight surveys, more for the point-to-point, points and multi-point products that we do. Similar to on-site surveying, once again, are we going to get the throughputs that we've specified? Is there line of sight available to do what we need to do, etc., etc. We can just verify that in the flesh. Also do post-survey, post-installation surveys, whether that be for the line of sight products or point-to-point products, or whether that be for the wireless as well. Not for resale kit or NFR for short. Absolutely, we can do some very aggressively discounted equipment. Should you want to test it in-house, use it in-house, buy it as demo kit for you to send out to your customers. There are some fantastic discounts available for you to do that. But equally, I kind of appreciate that maybe you're not going to jump into that if you're a brand new partner. So if that is the case, or if you just need to go through some technical approval processes to get the product onboarded, we do have plenty of demo kit available that you can borrow free of charge for up to 4 weeks as well. Oh, one thing I did miss there, apologies, I'm going to go back quickly. Access point labeling or asset registering, another service that we provide. Very good for typically the larger deployments, but we can pop access point labels on the access points and the switches as well. We can make a record of the serial numbers and the MAC addresses and obviously scan those into a spreadsheet. And that just helps some more your asset registering your side and for identification on site. If we've got an access point labeled access point 1 and it's sat in the lobby, if your end customer calls you up and says, look, I'm having some problems, they can say, look, I'm sat under access point 1. It's easily identifiable for them, easily identifiable for you, and then you can take the troubleshooting steps from there. So then we kind of jump into the Purdicom and CommScope / RUCKUS relationship. And this is where I need to try and be as modest as possible, but still tell you how great we are. So, we have been working with RUCKUS since, I want to say, I think they came into the UK around 2007, 2008, somewhere around that. And we kind of onboarded them shortly after that, around a similar sort of time scale. So we have been working for them for about the last decade, if not slightly more, which means they've got to know us really well. We know them really well. We've had great successes. The kind of next comment there, the distributor, we get this 6 years running. So whatever we're doing something right, and we've just got a fantastic relationship with the guys there. Personally, from the sales side, I talk to the various account managers there. No word of a lie, 2 or 3 times a day. There's always something that we need to discuss to support our partners, and we're always in constant communication. Equally, the technical team are the same. They're in constant supply with the RUCKUS engineer, constant communication with the RUCKUS engineers. So we're always getting up-to-date information. We are also testing partners for RUCKUS, so we always test their beta software, so we can kind of feed back any issues before it hits the general public and things like that as well. Once again, it just strengthens that relationship with RUCKUS and our communication. Tailored value, the technical days, we do lots of those as well. Unfortunately, they have been slowed somewhat due to the current climate, so we're having to do a lot more of this as webinar based, but we do have training facilities at Purdicom. We will do that sort of stuff. We normally have open days to give you greater insight into the products that we sell, RUCKUS included. And hopefully, when there's light at the end of the tunnel with COVID, we'll be able to get those sort of face-to-face campaigns running again. This slide we could spend absolutely ages on. Some of you may be aware, but RUCKUS have gone quite a long way in recent years, actually, through various acquisitions. So I'm going to try and do this as quickly as I can. But really what I want to talk about is, the switching that RUCKUS has actually come from, it's not a new product that RUCKUS have created, it's tried and tested, and it's actually from the Foundry network stage, which some of you may be aware of. So Foundry was really well known as a solid, reliable product. They then got purchased by Brocade roughly in around 2009. And some of you may know Brocade as well. Absolutely brilliant, robust product, very well known, very well respected. And they actually then purchased RUCKUS around 2016. And because of that acquisition, that's what introduced the switching to RUCKUS's portfolio. So, like I said, it's not a new product, the switching. Although it's new to perhaps RUCKUS, it's by no means a new vendor. So, those of you that know Brocade, those of you that know Foundry know it's absolutely rock solid. And that's ultimately what RUCKUS's switching is. It is ex-Foundry, ex-Brocade. RUCKUS then got acquired again back in around 2016, 2017 by a company called Aris. That was very short-lived actually, because Aris was the biggest competitor for CommScope, who CommScope then quickly acquired, and obviously RUCKUS being part of that. Now, what you will notice as a common theme though is RUCKUS has remained within the branding regardless of who's bought them, whether it's Brocade, whether it's been Aris, or whether it's been CommScope. RUCKUS, I think, is very well respected. It's a well-known brand, and RUCKUS will always stay there to some degree. So who do we sell to, or who do RUCKUS sell to? Now, if you look at the bottom left-hand side there, you notice some pretty big names: the Vodafones, the OTs, the Telefonicas. RUCKUS are the leading Wi-Fi provider inside of ISPs and service providers. They have something like a 60–70% market share within that industry, something that is just unknown and just unbelievable, really. Equally, if you look at the top right and actually sort of down middle bottom there with IHG, Marriott, Accor, IHG, 4- and 5-star hotels. If you look at those, we've got something ridiculous like an 80% market share worldwide, which is just phenomenal. I'm struggling to think of any other vendor that has that kind of market share within an industry. But that kind of just the biggest problem for hospitality and for hoteliers is connectivity. You know, if you can have a cold shower in the morning and people might grumble about it, the eggs might be slightly overdone. People typically won't complain, but if you've got what are predominantly business clientele coming into these types of hoteliers and they can't do their emails, or they can't prepare for the presentation, or whatever it may be, they will always complain about the Wi-Fi. The only way these 4- and 5-star hoteliers can kind of make any kind of compensation to the client is by perhaps reducing room rates, etc. And that's obviously a huge cost to the hoteliers over time. So they need a Wi-Fi network that's solid, that's reliable, and that won't cause them any problems. And they found that RUCKUS is that solution. Equally, if you look at it, you know, we've got a plethora of other end customers there. You know, we've got universities, we've got large public venues with London Excel, Nightingale Hospital, obviously being in the news quite a lot. That is RUCKUS. We did FIFA World Cup in Brazil not too long ago. You know, you're talking tens of thousands of people, 60, 70, 80,000 people in a relatively small space. And RUCKUS was chosen as the Wi-Fi vendor of choice there. You know, Marston's pubs, so, you know, hospitals, restaurant, bars, that kind of stuff, NHS. Now, I could be here all day, but, you know, whatever your requirements are, whoever your end customer is, we will have a case study or reference site that we can easily give them confidence to show that we've done this before, we know what we're doing, and we can easily suit their requirements. Moving on to the next, so this is where we're going to start coming into the actual portfolio itself. So we go over the indoor and outdoor access points, we go over the switching, and we go over the management platforms and some of the software and services as well. So we start with kind of Unleashed. Unleashed is a great product. It's kind of designed at that SME, SMB market, or primary schools, that kind of thing, where you've got relatively small networks. It's very easy to configure, very simple to manage. I mean, if you just look at the high-level overview for the system, we'll say it's SME, SMB, but it will support up to 128 access points, which is actually a fairly large network. We won't typically hit the 128 APs with Unleashed. The other limitation that we will hit more often than not is the 2048 concurrent connection. Sorry. So more often than not, you won't hit that limitation of the AP count, but you might hit it with the concurrent connection count. Not normally a problem, but, you know, like I said, ideal for those SME, SMB primary school type deployments, very easy to configure. So what will happen is you'll buy an Unleashed AP, you'll take, let's say you've got 10 of them, you'll take one out of the box, you'll configure that, that will become your master AP/controller. You'll then take out the rest of the other 9 APs, they will pull their config and configuration from that master AP. So as simple as that, once you've configured one, all of them are up and running. It will have resilience built into the solution, so that master AP will then select another AP at random to become the redundant, and therefore if that master AP fails for whatever reason, there is another one there to take management and ownership of the network. Worth mentioning as well, as the picture would demonstrate, all of the ICX or the switching portfolio is built into the same management platform for Unleashed, in fact, for all of the products which we'll talk about today. So you can manage all of the Wi-Fi and all of the Wi-Fi through a single pane of glass, regardless whether you go Unleashed or any of the other platforms. The limitation on Unleashed currently is 8 switches, which isn't normally a problem. Like, again, for the smaller deployments, it's absolutely fine. But that is a limitation of the amount of switches you can manage with an Unleashed network. There is also an app that's available. You can do some of the management and monitoring from that, but obviously there is a GUI interface with Unleashed that you can do for more traditional management as well. We then move on to kind of the next step up, which is the medium to large size controllers. So we start with the SmartZone 100. You've got some high level numbers there. So you've got 150 switches per cluster, 3,000 APs per cluster, or 60,000 concurrent connections per cluster. When we're talking clusters, we're talking 3+1, so 3 active and 1 redundant. So actually, if you then break that down per controller, you're looking at about 50 switches, 1,000 APs, or 20,000 concurrent connections. To the right-hand side of that, you'll have the virtual equivalent, so the SmartZone Essentials, exactly the same as the SmartZone 100, just a virtualized image. It is lower cost because obviously you would be putting it on your own hardware. It's just down to preference, really. Some people like a controller, some people are quite happy to virtualize it. So whatever the customer requirements, once again, we've got that. What I do really want to talk about actually is more that bottom section and what's proving popular with a lot of our customers. So although we've got that in large enterprise category, actually MSPs it's really, really well suited for. So if you've got either large sites or lots of individual small, medium or large sites, the actual SmartZone is definitely the solution to look at, I would say. So this gives you, it's a fully multi-tenanted solution. So what you can do with this is you would deploy the virtual SmartZone in the cloud somewhere, whether that be your own data center or whether you look at AWS or similar. You would then deploy that over in the cloud. You would then have what we call zones. So each zone is effectively its own controller, and you'd have a zone for each customer. So you'd have zone A for customer A, zone B for customer B, etc. Each zone has the ability to have its own policies, settings, and delegated administrators. So zone A would have its own policy settings and whatnot. Zone B would have a completely different, if you wanted it to be completely different settings and delegated admins, etc. But zone A cannot see zone B, and zone B cannot see zone A. You as the master administrator can see all of the zones, whether it's A, B, C, D, or E, or F, and so on and so forth. That gives you the ability to make adds, moves, and changes either in bulk to all of the zones or all of the customers, or you can make them on a per zone basis. And this is basically creating what we call wireless as a service. I can't technically call that anymore because it's not just wireless, it is the wide as well. So if you're trying to create an MSP or something as a network as a service, let's call it, virtual SmartZone is definitely the way to go. You will just deploy access points on customer site. You've then created a private cloud, and you can then obviously charge a subscription to that private cloud. This is by far our most popular model for MSPs or anyone looking to get into that space. The virtual SmartZone will support up to 10,000 access points or 100,000 concurrent connections. If you then put that in a cluster of 3+1, again, obviously those numbers triple. Very, very popular, very low cost to start up as well. Just to give you an idea of cost, $1,000 list will get you a virtual SmartZone. By the time we convert that to sterling, apply the NFR discounts, you're looking at a few £100. It really isn't expensive. That comes with one AP license. You then buy additional AP licenses to scale it as you go as well. So once again, you don't have to buy massive bulk amounts of licenses. It is literally per AP. You need 10 AP by 10 licenses. Licenses are perpetual, i.e. a one-off cost. So, you know, and they're not expensive. Once again, it's about $100 list price per license. And that is the cost forever. Once you own it, you own it. Equally, which is quite nice, is although obviously we sell you these as a one-off cost, you own the licenses. So if you sign up a customer for a 3-year service, after those 3 years, they say, look, thank you very much, but I've decided that I'm going to put hardware on site, so I don't need your private cloud solution anymore. No problem, Mr. Customer. You can actually reallocate those licenses that are assigned to customer A and supply those or assign those to customer B that's just about to take on the service. So at that point, you have no additional cost to actually buy those. You're just going to move licenses from one customer to another. Something that's very, very popular again for our managed service providers. We do have something called the data plane, which I'm not really going to talk too much about today. But you know, if you want to tunnel traffic, then we can absolutely do that. We typically see that more in like healthcare opportunities where you need to encrypt the data for security purposes, or we see it for carrier type customers where they need to understand how much data a customer is using so they can bill them accordingly. Outside of that, we don't really see too much demand, but it is there as a product should you have something weird and wonderful that you need to do. I'm more than happy to talk about that in more detail. Kind of covered this slide. Like I said, you've got all the administration and management flexibility from the SmartZone, so you can manage all sites from a single pane of glass. Equally, you can troubleshoot from a single pane of glass. You know, you are going to get real-time alerts from all these networks. If an access point goes down or if there is a problem, you will be notified, and therefore you can perhaps be more proactive in supporting your customer than you would be if it was an on-site solution where you don't have constant feeds coming through, keeping updated on the network health. We can also do reporting as well that can be automated. Very popular feature, just whether it's for your own use or whether it's for your customers, just being able to run off weekly, monthly reports and say, look, this is the network health, Mr. Customer. It's been really, really good. You know, and you can either charge for that service if you wanted to give them some sort of reporting, or you can do it as a free charge value add. We have people that charge, we have customers that do it for free. So once again, the commercials on that side are completely down to you. And then the architecture, like I said, it's flexible. You know, you are just going to buy single AP licenses and scale it as you go. Equally, from a VM perspective, the hardware requirements of the controller can be scaled as you grow that as well. So you can start with a relatively small virtual environment because you don't have lots of APs from day one. And actually, you can just start chucking more and more resource at the infrastructure as and when you need to as your network grows. So once again, not just from a software and a RUCKUS perspective, but actually they thought about the back-end costs to partners as well, and have said, look, you know, we started off small, the resource requirements are small, and just chuck more of it as you need to hopefully minimize the cost to you. Obviously, something that everyone is talking about, if you don't want to create a private cloud via SmartZone, then RUCKUS do have their own cloud solution as well. So, you know, for whatever reason, if you don't want to do it, you can't afford to do it, you just don't want to do it, you're not geared up to do it, RUCKUS do have a traditional cloud as well, which is very, very similar to every other cloud solution out there that you know. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but it does support the switching, it does support the access points. There is an MSP model for cloud as well. So actually, if you want to have management and you want to kind of cluster all of your customer sites into one and have the single pane of glass management, like the SmartZone platform, then you can do that. Obviously, with the cloud solution, it is a subscription cost. So you pay per AP, per year, per 3 years, per 5 years. Ultimately, what drives the RUCKUS cloud actually is worth mentioning, sorry, is actually a virtual SmartZone behind the scenes that drives the RUCKUS cloud. So RUCKUS do use their own virtual SmartZone to run their own cloud. They just give partners the ability to run their own private cloud as well, which is quite nice. And that kind of covers the management platforms. But as you can kind of see from that, whatever your customer requirements are, we can kind of cater for all of them. So if you want controller less with Unleashed, if you want virtualized, we can do that. If you want hardware on site, we can do that. If you want cloud, we can do that. If you want to create an MSP/private cloud model, we can do that. So we're never going to force you down a specific route because we only sell cloud. So that's what you must buy. You must buy that. It's great. You know, we can tailor our solutions to what's best for you and what's best for the customer. So it's quite nice having that full armory there to make sure that we give the customer the right fit. Carla, before I kind of go on to the access points, have there been any questions in the chat panel as of yet that I should stop and answer?
No, so we've got no questions so far, but if anybody does have any, just pop it in the Q&A.
Fantastic, thank you. Right, I'll move on to the access points in that case. So as you would expect with any kind of reputable manufacturer, we've got a wide range of APs depending on what the scenario is, what the customer budget is, and what the demand is. So we start on the low density. Actually, the T310C, though it's classed as low density, probably isn't fair. We've got hundreds, if not thousands of these out doing public and street Wi-Fi deployments, you know, hundreds of users, that kind of thing. School playgrounds, manufacturing warehouses, all of that kind of stuff. So actually, although it's in that low density bracket, probably not really true, but it is a lower cost AP, which is quite nice, and probably why it's good money it's good bang for the buck, as they say. The R320, once again, we'd probably put those into the smaller SME, SMB, primary school, those kind of things, those types of deployments. Once again, though, rock solid. You can put that between a classroom of 2 or 3, and it'll be absolutely fine, especially in primary school where perhaps the network demands aren't as high. As you move on through that, we come to that mid-density, and these are probably the more popular APs. In fact, the R320 is one of our biggest selling, as is the T310, but so are the R510s and the R610s. You'll also notice the R550s and R650s, excuse me. And as you see, there is quite a comprehensive range there, but please don't be off put by that. I think we're just in a weird time at the moment. As you may be aware, Wi-Fi 6 is now a thing, or 802.11ax. So, you know, we have got that overlap period where we're still doing lots of AC or Wi-Fi 5 deployments, but there is a new product. So that's perhaps why the portfolio is a little bit, or seems bigger than it is. You know, I think as time moves on, obviously the Wi-Fi 6 portfolio will become king, and that Wave 2 or Wi-Fi 5 portfolio will start to disappear. But at the moment, we are in that weird period. So we do have all of the products. So we've got R510 there, which is a 802.11ac or Wi-Fi 5 Wave 2 access point. Very, very popular for those mid-density deployments, 2x2. The next upgrade from that is the R550. As you may have guessed, that is the Wi-Fi 6 equivalent of the R510. The R610 is the AC or Wi-Fi 5 Wave 2 access point of choice. As you can see, the difference between the R510 and R610 is that's a 3x3 rather than a 2x2. So perhaps you should start moving up to that higher density requirement again, perhaps more secondary school colleges, depending on the types of devices they're using, you perhaps start to look at those R610s, or maybe you do R510s in classroom, but R610s in communal areas such as libraries, halls, that kind of thing. R650, as you probably would have guessed, is the upgrade to the R610, or say the upgrade, it's the Wi-Fi 6 equivalent of the R610. As we move on to high density, once again, this is where we probably start using it for large public venues, that kind of thing, where we're talking hundreds, thousands of devices that need to be connected to the network. There are quite a few products there. Once again, look, I'm not going to go through each individual one and where it would be used, but please speak to us. We've got a wide range there. We'll work out what's the best fit for you and your customers, what we're here for. We're here to do that and help you pick the right product. Specialty APs, I do want to touch on, especially the H series there, the H320 and the H510. We sell absolutely thousands of these each month. Very, very, very popular in hospitality. So traditionally, the R series are more of a ceiling-based access point. The H series are more of a wall-mounted access point. But they do have what makes them so popular, the 4 ports in terms of the H510, they've got 4 ports on the bottom. The H320 has 2 ports. On the H510, one of those ports can actually be PoE out as well. So where we've normally use these is a hotel. You put one in the bedroom, that will provide wireless, but also as well, you can start plugging in your smart TV, a printer, your mini bar, maybe obviously with the PoE out, you might even put an IP phone in there as well and power the IP phone from that PoE out port. So that's very, very popular. It reduces cabling cost to the customer. They can just run one cable and that will then do everything I've just said, plus the access point. It therefore reduces cabling cost, cabling time, switch ports, switch costs, installation, obviously ongoing management because you don't have as many switches, etc., etc. Really, really powerful, solid access points. Like I said, sell them by the absolute bucket load. There is the H550, which is the Wi-Fi 6 equivalent of the H510, and that is coming out pretty much now, actually. I think Ruckus will start taking orders late this month, early October. So watch this space, that will be coming out imminently as well. The E510 and M510, very niche. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about those. They're typically more ruggedized APs and normally used for sort of like transport, putting them on trains, buses, bus shelters, that kind of thing. Look, they are on there. They're very niche. We don't sell lots of them, but when we do, you know, they are for very bespoke requirements, but they are there and we'll kind of specify those for you if we need to go into them. C10 is more of the C110, sorry, is more of a DOCSIS coax type router. Once again, very niche, very bespoke. It is there should you need it, but you know, I'll cover that with you when the requirement comes up. This slide, especially if we've got any technical people, we could spend about an hour on this slide just going through the various technologies. But ultimately, what I want to kind of summarize with this slide is, look, there's loads of stuff that goes into the Ruckus technology that makes them as good as they are. And I think a lot of you are probably on this call today because you've heard Ruckus have got some of the best RF, if not the best RF on the market. And a lot of that is due to some of the patents and the technologies that Ruckus have here. The main one that I am going to spend a little bit of time talking about today, actually, and probably the one that all of you have heard about, is BeamFlex and BeamFlex Plus. So if any of you've heard of RUCKUS, I'm sure you've heard about beamflex. And one thing that I do want to cover is beamforming, and that is not to be confused with beamflex. We do utilize beamforming. In fact, it came out as part of, I want to say, the Wave 1 AC standard. And everyone kind of said, well, you know, that's RUCKUS's USP kind of gone with beamforming. But no, beamforming is kind of a best guess. And what for those of you that don't know, beamforming is basically trying to utilize the energy that from the access point as efficiently as it can. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to directionalize where it's talking, but it's more of a best guess. So, you know, like a compass, you've got north, east, south, and west. It will determine that a device is trying to communicate somewhere between east and west and north direction. So it was kind of like a human route. If you shout in a field, if you're trying to talk to someone, you turn your head because that's the direction the person's in, and you'll shout towards them across the field. Now, because you've turned your head, obviously your direction, you're facing that person, your voice will kind of go out in that direction. But equally, your voice will still go left, it'll still go right, and some of it will still go behind. It's the best kind of guess. And that's what beamforming is. It's an improvement, don't get me wrong. And like I said, we do utilize beamforming, but we do put beamflex on top, which still gives us our additional benefits and our USPs. So beamflex, the best to describe that is kind of like a light bulb in your house. You know, you put a light bulb in the ceiling, it lights up the room and it goes everywhere and it's great. It covers the room, but it disperses quite quickly. What we do, or what beamflexing does, is it takes the same light bulb and it puts it in a torch. Now we've got the same light bulb, we've not changed anything like that, but we're focusing that energy. We're being more directional, more granular with that RF. And what that does is it means, because we've got that torch, we can then point it in the direction that we want, which means our coverage or our RF goes further, which means we get an improvement on throughput speeds. It means that we can talk to people further away, which means we need less access points. And equally as well, you know, we're tidying up that RF environment. So, you know, if you think about it, rather than now having a 360-degree coverage, we've now got, and they call it a 30-degree coverage. The rest of the 330 degrees is clean air, it's clean RF. So we don't have to worry about code channel interference as much because we're eliminating that. Now, don't get me wrong, when we're broadcasting the SSID and when, you know, a device is trying to connect, that is 360 degrees. But when we're transmitting to a client or to a device, you know, we are being more granular and we are keeping the RF free. And equally, that's kind of, beamflex is one of the reasons why we're so popular within high density deployments, because for all, any of you that know, the key to high density is just talking to the device as quickly as you can and getting it on and off the network. So if we can improve throughput, if we can limit the amount of APs and the congestion, and we can make sure that the transmissions are going through first time, we can get to that device, we can communicate to it, and we can move on to the next quicker. And ultimately, it's beamflex that's kind of ensuring that we can do you know, high density deployments and also reduce the amount of APs that we have, in some cases up to 30%, which obviously has a knock-on effect to cost of the access points, reduction in cost of the control platform that you need, the amount of licenses that you need, and the power that you need, the switching that you need, and the installation time. So there's a big knock-on effect by reducing that as well. And also, actually, in terms of support costs, obviously you don't have such a big network, you don't need so much support, and support costs are lower as well. That's quite a big talking point, so I am just going to stop there. And Cara, if you can just, are there any questions on beamflex?
So we don't have any questions at the moment. I think you're doing a really good job of explaining everything so well.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just beamflex is quite a key one, and something I imagine that a lot of people will have come across. So I just wanted to stop on that one. But thank you.
What we'll do as well in the follow-up is we'll send some additional resources and some downloads for everybody to kind of take a deeper dive.
Perfect. Yeah, fantastic.
Thanks.
Cool. So Wi-Fi 6, once again, if we've got any technical people on the call, we could spend quite a while on this, but there are some things that have come into Wi-Fi 6 as a standard, so it's not unique to RUCKUS. But I think the purpose of this slide really is just to say there are some efficiencies. Obviously, beamflex is still very much a part of that and very successful, but there's also some additional things that Wi-Fi 6 as a standard brings to the table to further increase that. Equally, you know, RUCKUS were one of the first, were the first vendor, in fact, on the market to bring out a Wi-Fi 6 access point. They were also the first to bring out a Wi-Fi 5 access point and a Wi-Fi 5 Wave 2 access point as well. So they're always one of the industry leaders, They're always on top of it. And you might remember, or you may have seen on one of the slides where we saw about all the acquisitions. They've got a great history through all of the kind of products and manufacturers that they've either been acquired by or acquired. You know, Brocade were first out with some of the first 10 gig switching and the 100 gig switching, 40 gig switching and things like that. So RUCKUS as an organization have got a great history of being one of the innovators and one of the leaders when it comes to bring out leading edge technology. So now we're going to come on to the switching. I think most of you will probably be fairly familiar with switching, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time talking about this. But what I do want to talk about is obviously, look, we do have an end-to-end portfolio here. So, you know, everything from edge to aggregation to core or access, as some people may prefer to call it. But we do have that in our portfolio. So whatever the requirement is, we can certainly help with that from an end-to-end perspective. One thing that I do just want to spend a little bit of time talking about is what Wi-Fi 6 also brings is perhaps a bit, not a problem, but something that you need to be aware of. So obviously with Wi-Fi 6, there's now improved bandwidth and improved throughput. We're talking multi-gigabit throughput now. And because of that, we've had to put, well, all manufacturers, in fact, have had to put 2.5 gig ports on the AP to enable you to get those throughputs. It's pointless having it to the radio, and as soon as it hits the network port, it's down to a gig. And similarly, you know, that applies to the switching as well. So, you know, we can have a 2.5 gig port on the AP, but as soon as it hits your network or your switch, if it's down to 1 gigabit, that's your bottleneck. Now, what RUCKUS have brought out is this 7150Z series, and that has got 2.5 gig ports on. If I'm being honest, I think there's a lot of the devices, though Wi-Fi 6 is here today, the access points are there today. Wi-Fi 6 in terms of client devices, there's not many out there on the market. Obviously, as newer iPhones, as newer laptops come out, that will obviously change. More and more compatible devices will start supporting Wi-Fi 6. So perhaps, you know, if a customer has just refreshed their switching in the last few years, maybe today you put the Wi-Fi in and not worry so much about the switching, but mention it to the customer, tell them that obviously this is going to be the switching, regardless of whatever manufacturer, it's a gigabit, it is going to be a restriction moving forward. So like I said, might not be needed today because it might start putting things out of budget, but certainly start setting that expectation today with your customer, start working with them on the budget. So, you know, in a year, 2 years time, once those devices are more available on the market and start being used more, you know, you have got the infrastructure in place to support Wi-Fi 6. If you're not going to look at the switching in the short or long term, it's pointless buying the Wi-Fi 6 APs. It really is. Just stick with Wi-Fi 5. As I said, you know, RUCKUS have come from the legacy days of Foundry and Brocade, and all of that technology is still very much today present in the switching and in their portfolio. You know, it's what made those manufacturers as successful as they are. Would be stupid to remove any of that. So it's still very much a crucial and key part of that. I'm not going to talk through every sort of feature and standard that we have in that, but a couple of things that I will point out that vary from our competition is we can stack up to 12 switches. Equally as well, when stacking, we don't need to have RUCKUS specific cables that cost you an arm and a leg. That I know some vendors do. You can stack with our switching using standard Cat5 or Cat6 with no problems at all. We can also stack up to 10 kilometers in terms of distance, which, you know, perhaps overkill in a lot of environments, but you do have that availability as well. I do just want to kind of reiterate that all of the switching is managed or can be managed if you want it to be by all of the controller platforms, whether that's the Unleashed, the hardware on controllers on site, the virtualized platforms, or RUCKUS Cloud as well. So single pane of glass management, configuration, troubleshooting, and deployment can all be done via any of the platforms. One thing that is really popular as well that I do just want to talk about is the lifetime warranty on all of the switching. And in fact, actually, I didn't mention this for the APs as well, so I'll quickly cover that. But all of the indoor APs come with a limited lifetime warranty. And what that means, what limited lifetime means is for the duration that the access point is in sale, plus a further 5 years from the end of sale announcement. So as a minimum, you know, you're going to have 5 years support. That is a back to base repair or replace. But, you know, I think just talks volumes about how robust the access points are. And from the switching perspective, the same applies as well. Limited lifetime warranty on all of the switching, which also includes the fans and power supplies as well. You know, I don't think that's something that any manufacturer would offer if they were failing every 5 minutes. You know, they are solid, they are robust, and we don't really have any problems. So that kind of covers the portfolio today. Like I said, I've tried to keep it very high level because I'm conscious of time as well. But if you want to talk about any of those in greater detail, there is some contact information at the end, or you know, pop it in the chat. We will call you, we will get in touch, and we go through that. But to finish it off, I just kind of want to talk about some of the value that actually becoming a partner brings to you as well. So if you get up to an oh, sorry.
Sorry, hi, I'm just going to interject. We have actually had a question just before we move on to the value add, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course it is.
So somebody's just asking, in terms of support, if any kit needs to be RMA'd, what's the estimated turnaround in terms of getting that sorted to avoid, well, actually specifically around switches to avoid downtime?
Yeah, no, fair enough. So, I mean, there's a couple of ways. It depends, really. So Purdicom, actually, one of the other value adds that we provide is we offer an up to 30-day, what we call a dead on arrival or DOA policy. So if you bought the product from us within the last 30 days, we will replace it next business day, providing that, you know, it's not at 6 o'clock at night. You know, our cut-off time is about 4:30 in the afternoon in the weekdays. So if you can raise the support case with us before then and give us enough time, let's say by 4 o'clock, that should give us half an hour to raise the relative processes and get another one shipped out to your next business day. If it's outside of that, then specifically on the switching, RUCKUS are pretty good and will replace that within 24 to 48 hours. So hopefully that answers the question, but between Purdicom and between RUCKUS, we can get replacements out to you fairly quickly, normally next business day, if not within 1 or 2 days. Typically, it's not so much of a problem if you're talking edge switching to be down for that amount of time. If you're talking core switching, then I would sort of say, well, we should be looking at having some sort of resilience or redundancy in place anyway, to keep you up and running. But, you know, I do appreciate equally, you do want it replaced quite quickly. And we can normally do that, with, like I said, within 24 to 48 hours. Hopefully that answers your question, but if not, pop it in the Q&A. I'm sure Carla will come back to you.
And equally we'll follow up as well with in an email with all your follow-ups. So we'll put some information around the RMA process in there for you as well.
Fantastic, cool. Thank you. Any more questions, Carla?
No, well, we've got no, that's all good for now. We can also come back to you, Hassan, for information about how to become a partner. So we'll follow up with you separately afterwards.
Yeah, I will touch on, actually, it's a good point. I will just touch on that, but it's all very, very simple. To partner with Purdicom, as Carla said, we can send you information. It's just we'll send you a link, and we just ask for your information. Obviously, that means we can get you set up in the system and start looking at putting credit limits in place. In terms of becoming a partner for RUCKUS, once again, very simple. If you go to partners.ruckuswireless.com, there is a just, you know, register as a partner tab, and it just asks for the same sort of information: who you are, your email address, company name, etc. If you didn't jot that down quick enough, don't worry. As Carla said, we will follow up with further information, and we can also talk to you about what you need to do to become an accredited partner as well. But yeah, I mean, there are 2 levels of partner. You've got oh god, I've forgotten what the normal one is, but you've got standard partner and you've got elite partners, basically. So, you know, elite partners, there are some slightly different additional benefits, but you also have to reach a certain level of spend. One of those benefits is a funded head. So RUCKUS, we can look at providing some sort of financial support to have a RUCKUS head within your organisation and sort of sharing the salary, shall we say. So that can be anything from marketing. You know, once again, you know, we can fund up to 50% if you wanted a marketing head that was kind of RUCKUS specific. It could be a salesperson or a product manager or product specialist, whatever you prefer to call it. If you want to have someone that owns that RUCKUS business and helps to drive sales, then we can help do that as a funded head. It could be a pre-sales or post-sales engineer. It could be a combination of all of them. But, you know, that is something that's very popular for the elite partners. You do have to reach certain levels of spend. I think it's about $1 million for the funded head to start applying, and that's $1 million per year. But, you know, look, great target to aim for, and a nice little reward if you can do so as well. Obviously, as any kind of partner, and probably what you'd expect, there are additional discounts and promotions if you are a partner to if you're not a partner. If you're not a partner, you're going to get your standard 10 to 15% off list. You don't qualify for any of the promotions and that kind of thing. If you are a partner, then actually start applying for additional partner-based discounts, but also vertical discounts, and also all of the promotions that are in play as well. The promotions vary quarter to quarter. Some get extended, some are brand new, some get closed at the end of each quarter. Don't worry about necessarily trying to keep up to date with everything that's going on. Once again, that's kind of what we're here for. Our job is to kind of make sure that you get the best price first time, because ultimately, if you don't win the business, neither do we. So if we can get you that best price first time, that's why utilising the promotions and the vertical specific discounts, etc. That's what we're here to do. We will get you those pricing. Obviously, deal registration, I think, is a key part for all partners. It's vital for you to know that you are protected. So once you are a partner, you can register an opportunity. And that end user is then effectively ring-fenced to you, which means not only you can get the additional discounts, only you can get the access to the promotions. And that means that you're not going to have a bum fight lastminute.com when your customer goes out for 3 quotes and you get the rug pulled out from under your feet because someone's decided to chuck a 1% margin on it just because they've done none of the pre-sales work beforehand and they just want to box shift it. But we'll protect you. RUCKUS are very, very passionate about this. They're very good at protecting the partners, and deal registration is very well policed as well. Rebates, once again, it doesn't say it, but actually that is mainly for the elite partners as well. But I think to qualify for that, the spend is slightly lower. I want to say it's about $500,000 per year. But yes, once again, there are quarterly rebates available for those of you that become an elite partner. Everything else like the MDF, the deal registration and the promotions apply to all partners, regardless of status, whether you're elite or select. That was the word I was looking for, select partners. Excuse me. As also becoming a partner, you will get an account manager and also access to their engineering team as well. So not only will you have an account manager such as myself, perhaps from Purdicom, but you'll also be given a RUCKUS contact as well, should you want to contact the vendor directly. And also, we do, as I said before, we do work very closely with the manufacturer. So, although we can come and do pre and post sale support for you, we can kind of help at events, we can help with the design work, we can do all that. RUCKUS will also help support that as well. We do understand that, as good as we are at these things, sometimes your end customers do like to feel like they're getting a little bit of a warm, fuzzy feeling and a cuddle from the vendor. And, in times like that, sometimes, especially on the bigger deals, RUCKUS are more than happy to roll up their sleeves, get stuck in and come to site with you to help pitch the solution. And like I said, just to show face to that vendor, to show that their business does mean a lot to, Purdicom, yourself and RUCKUS ultimately. And that kind of concludes the presentation today. So, thank you very much for watching. And if you want to get in touch with us, then the details are there on screen. I will leave them there. Equally, as Carla's kind of said a couple of times, we will follow up with a copy of the presentation. This has been recorded, so we'll send that out to you. And we'll also just follow up with any kind of other general bits of information, how to become a partner, all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to open it up to Q&A now as well. Carla, I don't know if we've had any more questions.
No, we're all up to date. But yeah, we can stay online now for a few minutes. And if you've got anything else that you'd like to ask either of us, just pop it in the chat or the Q&A. That would be great.
Yeah, fantastic. So guys, look, thank you very much again. We will stay here for a few more minutes just to make sure there aren't any questions. But if you want to take a note of the details, please do. And thank you very much again.
Thank you very much.